but we never took a course on how to perceive an opportunity and position ourselves in front of it, or, Success 101 or Success 102. We never took those courses. They don't teach those in school. And so what I realized real quickly was that if I wanted to become successful, I had to study success. It's kind of like a doctor studies medicine, a lawyer studies law, and there's so many other fields of education and whatnot. If you want to become successful, get around the successful people and understand that. Now, some of the must-haves that a new person really needs in this business is a true desire. You got to have that passion. You got to have it. You got to want it so bad that you can taste it. You got to want to change your address. You got to want to do the things and dream big and make those goals, and we'll talk about those types of things. But the second area is belief. You got to believe in your company. You got to believe in what your company's doing, what their mission is. You got to believe in their products. You got to believe in the opportunity. You got to believe in this industry as a whole. And most importantly, you got to believe in yourself. And I think that that's something that is key, and that's where we talk about the personal development aspect. Mike, if you have any thoughts you want to share with us.
Absolutely. And what a wonderful job, and just, great knowledge to pass along. Not just, those listening in. What you want to do is become a good teacher. Take in some great information today, and let's pass this along to your entire organization. Two things I want to comment on, though. If you focus on personal development, let me tell you something, you will overcome, write this down, fear. Many people will not go to the next level in life because they have a tremendous fear. Literally, it's a fear of success. Some people, they fear criticism. They want to get involved. They want to explode their business. They want to go to the next level, just like what Mike talked about, but they fear criticism. And I want you to write this down. There's absolute surefire way to avoid criticism for the rest of your life. Write this down. Number one, you can say nothing. Number two, you can do nothing. And number three, you can become nothing. That's how you 100% surefire way to avoid criticism in your life. So the bottom line, folks, is you are going to be criticized. You are going to have objections. You're going to face rejection. There's going to be some fear elements involved. But what you have to do is face your fears head on. Personal development is the key to overcoming fear, to overcoming that belief system some people have. They've been conditioned their entire life for failure. People told them they were not going to be successful. They're like victims of generational thinking. Because mom and dad did this, that means I have to do this. And that's not true, folks. We're in the 21st century, and this is the time for opportunity. This is your opportunity. So we want to get you fired up. We want your mindset laser focused, because we're going to get started in course number 2 to get working on your leads.
Well, what's important about that, I just have a couple comments that I'd like to make on that, is as you said, Mike, is it's very important to learn this business. And that's what you're doing right now by sitting down, studying the courses, listening to the tapes, and doing those types of things. What I call that is finding the leader, okay, or following the leader. Following the leader, that's what we used to do when we were kids. We used to follow the leader, and that's really what we're doing right now by listening to these tapes and learning through that process. The second area is it's important to learn how to teach the program, to teach your business. That's becoming a leader. As you start to teach it, you start to become, and that's when you really start to get really good at where you're positioned in life and really good at your business in the network marketing field, is when you start teaching that business, and that's what I call becoming the leader. The third area really is teaching other people how to teach this business, okay? That's where the total freedom comes, what I call training the trainers, or teaching people how to teach the business. I found myself in Minnesota a few years back doing a live seminar in front of about 300 or 400 people that were there at the time, and we did a good job. We had some fun with it. We did a briefing, and then we did a training, and that lasted for a few hours. We sat down for lunch with some of the leaders afterwards, and one individual that I had in my organization sat back and says, "Michael, that you are, you've arrived when you have 300 or 400 people sitting on the edge of their seat, hanging on every word." And I said, "No, I disagree." I said, respectfully, I disagree with that. And it's kind of fun, because what I said was, he said, "What do you mean by that?" And I said, "Well, you're on your way when the person up in front of the room has got people hanging on the edge of their seat, hanging on every word, and they're listening to them very intently, and that person that's in front of the room is a part of your organization." That's where you start teaching people how to teach, and that's really where the exponential growth will start to occur. It's the duplication factor. It's that magical thing that does occur, and that's where it really leads to total freedom. I would tell people that the fundamentals in this business is, I want you to understand that it is a business. If you treat it as a business, it will pay you like a business. If you treat it like a hobby, it will pay you like a hobby. We've heard that 100 times, but it's so true. That's why you got to get real serious, and that's some of the things that we're going to share with you today, over the next few days, over the next few hours, really, as you listen to this tape series, is to understand how to prepare, mentally for that, to treat it as a business, because you want to create that. You want to get educated. You understand that there's going to be ups and downs in this business. There's always ups and downs. There's positives and there's negatives. And, that's life. That's life. Any company worth its salt is going to go through ups and downs. Any person worth their salt is going to go through ups and downs. The only way to avoid it is to do nothing, as Mike said, and it's such a powerful statement. Now, the other thing is to stay focused on the basics. I remember sitting in front of a room with the speaker that was up front, and I looked around the room. There was a couple hundred people in the room, and it was when I was first starting in this industry, and I sat back and I realized real quick that if it was up to me, I was going to be the one that was going to control my destiny. I didn't worry about the person to my right or to the person to my left, a cross-line individual, somebody in a different company. I cannot focus on the he said, she said stuff. I have to focus on what I'm doing and what I'm going to accomplish, because that's where the rubber meets the road. It's what you're going to do. Now, are you going to work your cutting-edge leads? Are you going to work your lead system? Are you going to focus on making those calls every single day? Are you going to develop a business plan designed to take you to success in this company? Now, we're going to talk about a lot of different things today, and I just want you to get real serious and real focused on that. Now, the reason why I say that is because we've done this for quite some time now. I know, Mike, you make a six-figure income, multiple six-figure income in this industry. I've done that, a multiple six-figure income, for about 6 years now. I started at about 26, 27 years old. I'm 32 years old now. I'm a member of the Millionaires Club with my company. I'm very proud of that. My father and I are partners in this business. We started in this industry together, and I'm very proud of what we've accomplished, as a whole, but it all started with me. Nobody did it for us. Nobody did it. Nobody was going to, build my business for me. It all came from what we're doing here. And I learned. I sat back. I checked my ego at the door. I started taking notes. I started doing the things that the successful people were doing, and I implemented it. And the most important thing that I did was I focused. I focused on my daily motive of operation. I focused on on the little things that I knew that were going to compound over time. So if I was making 2 calls a day or 10 calls a day, say I did 10 calls a day, by the end of the year, you're talking about 3,000, almost 4,000 calls if you're doing 10, 12, 15 calls a day. It's vitally important to your success, and I just highly encourage everybody to get real focused on the basics with this business, and I would encourage you to become independent as fast as you can. Understand that it's not about what your upline's doing for you, your downline, or anything else. It's all about you. You want to become independent and stay focused on doing that, and really just what I would just say is take responsibility. And I'm sure you'd agree with that, Mike.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing I'd like to close with is the fact that, the purpose of mentally preparing yourself for success. In a way, Michael and I are trying to get you a little bit motivated, but most importantly, we want you to maintain your motivation. There's a major difference. I've seen many people get motivated for 3-4 weeks, and they're like a wet firecracker. They fizzle out. And personal growth, that's why it's key. That's why we started this training series talking about personal growth, personal development, because the ability to maintain motivation is the key. And that's why it's so critical that you make a commitment today. We could tell you story after story. We could talk about this for hours, folks, but we got to get down to some nuts and bolts so you can become successful this month, this year with your lead programs. But make that commitment. On behalf of Mike and I, trust me, it's something that is well worth the investment of your time. If you even have to spend money, I promise you 12 months down the road, 24 months down the road, you will see a major difference in your lifestyle.